We're going live. Got it. It's happening. It's happening. Hi. Hello, everyone. It's Thursday and welcome to a new month. And our new theme of practice is what we are talking about today. And in this Prasada Talks, I'm really excited. This Prasada Talks, the power of tiny habits. I'm thrilled to be joined by the lovely Debbie Heller, who is joining us she's more of the habit expert than I am, and she is here to just start to unpack this topic with us. Because when we decided on this month's theme of practice, when we're practicing something, when we're building things into our lives, we really want to kind of zoom, like make it a little smaller and look at what are the habits that make up your day-to-day life, and are they supporting you in moving in the direction you'd like to move, or staying feeling kind of vibrant, healthy, focused, purposeful, or are they derailing you? So we wanted to unpack habits in our writings and in our sessions. So Debbie, since you're new to the Prasada Talks, tell us a little bit about you and just sort of how you've arrived here and what brought you to study habits more and then have it be a huge part of your work. Why are you jazzed about habits?
Well, thank you for having me today, and thank you all for being here with us. So my background really led me to delve deeper into this power of habits. I have a master's degree in counseling, and my focus in my counseling training was motivation and behavior change. Like all the way back then, I was just really interested in why can some people successfully change and why others really, really struggle with change. And so in that journey, I'm also a certified health and wellness coach, because I realized it's not just about having information, right? It's really about supporting people in their journey, whatever it may be. So more than 15 years ago, I started following the work of BJ Fogg, and he is a professor out at Stanford, and he has a human behavior design lab. So he's been researching habits for that long. And I've always been a fan of his work, and his work is simple, which I love, and it's doable for everybody. And he just continues to expand on his research. So in that process, he has a process that he has written a book on even, and it's called Tiny Habits. So I've used this process for at least 15 years in my coaching practice. I've used it for myself frequently. And so I am just a big fan of this idea of making behavior change easy and fun. And we all can do it. It's just, as BJ says, it's not a personal failure when you don't change. It's a design flaw. You just haven't designed it in a way that's going to support you in being successful. So that's just a brief overview on why this topic is just so interesting to me.
I love that. And I didn't know your kind of initial origin story. That just all makes sense now.
Yeah.
Really cool. So why is it so hard to change then? Tell me that.
Right? I mean, we all have had that experience, I'm sure, including me. It's really hard to change because the brain likes to stay in its comfort zone. So even if we've been doing something that doesn't serve us very well, it's what our body is used to doing. And so it doesn't take much effort to stay doing those same old things, those same old behaviors. And so when we go to change, if we're just relying on things like motivation and willpower, we're not going to be very successful, because those two things really go up and down. They don't stay steady. We can't rely on them. So given that they're unreliable, still the majority of the people rely on them to make a change. They feel motivated, they want to do this, and then they, jump in, and it goes good for, sometimes a week, a month. And then, bam, we just slide back into our old way of being. And so the brain does like habits. And so it will make a habit for you if you keep repeating a behavior. So when we go to change, we really have to design it differently so that we are giving the brain the process to do it with, and it can happen much quicker and much easier if we do that.
I like that. Yes, that willpower and motivation thing. And I have all too frequently. Anyone else who's here in the Zoom room with us, share in the chat, like, yes, I know this experience. Where anyone else like set up a whole new life plan and had a spreadsheet and all the different color codes and did it for like 2 days and then
Me.
okay, so all of us. And I really love that we pull the judgment out of it. Like you said, it's not that we're like horrible humans lacking willpower, that something's wrong with us. It's that it's the failure of the design, right? We haven't designed it well. So tell me more about that. Like, what is this art of habit design?
So behavior happens in a very predictable format. Okay, you can think of it as you have a cue that's directing you to go do something, then you have an action, and then you have a reinforcement or a reward. And so BJ just uses different wording around that. He calls the cue is an anchor, the action is a behavior, and the reward is a celebration. So those three things are predictable. We will not have a behavior if we don't have a cue. Something in our environment, in our beliefs, in our patterns will cue us. It's time to do that now. And if we just repeat those three things, especially if the reward at the end of it is really a good reward, we can just cement that into a habit quickly. So with designing, this art of designing is that we are all designers of our own behavior, and we just don't know how to use it often. And sometimes it's even hard for us to personally see these things right in our everyday life. We just sort of go around, operate, on past programming. So to interject a new program or a new habit, we're going to go back to those three elements that are predictable things. So, we talked about motivation and willpower being unreliable. These three things are reliable, happens in that order over and over. So we're going to use that in a way that's going to make this change that our brain really doesn't want to do. It's going to make it it's going to enjoy doing it. It can be fun. It can be much easier. And a couple of the components around that are, BJ says it's really critical that it be kept small. Because when that behavior that we're looking to insert into our life is too much, we're not going to be successful. So that's where he comes up with this idea of tiny habits.
So these tiny behaviors, that's the second step, is like, how can I distill this down to something really small? So
really
like,
tiny.
If I want to say that my aspiration is, or my end goal is like, I want to improve my cardiovascular health. So the behavior portion, walk a mile is or run a mile, that's too big. Is that too big?
Often it is for most people,
right? Okay.
But it's very personal. And that's the piece that it's good to know that you personally are going to design the habit for you. Nobody can tell you this is how you should do it. You might list all the ways, Meg, that you can improve cardiovascular health, and you mentioned exercise as an example. So the only way to know if that behavior is tiny enough is, are you doing it repeatedly? Because it's the repetition in that sequence that I mentioned. It's the repetition that's going to make it a new habit or a new behavior in your life.
Okay. Can we kind of walk through a sample using that example? So say I come to you, because Debbie also coaches people on this tiny habits refinement and design process, correct?
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
let's do like a little mini, do you mind? I'm putting you on the spot, a mini
No, no,
coaching on that,
let's do it.
just to
Let's
give
do it.
like an example of how it works. So
Okay.
say, yes, my goal is I want to improve cardiovascular, just, get my heart rate up going. And yeah, no, I'm not I'm not going to run a mile yet. So where would we start in this process?
Okay. So if we were working together, I would ask you, how much would you like to start doing? So
Hmm.
in that case, what do you think, Meg, that
Okay.
you would like to do and that you could do
Yes.
easily?
And taking off that expectation, I don't know if anyone else in here has this thought of like, it's always go big or go home, like at the assumption I can do more than I actually can do or have the like time for. So I'm going to listen to your advice and pare it down and say I can commit 15 minutes a day
Okay.
to this goal.
Okay. And so then we are going back to the sequence and we're going to look at what can you anchor that to that already exists very reliably in your everyday pattern.
Um, After I brush my teeth in the morning,
Okay.
I just brush my teeth in the morning. So,
Okay. So after you brush your teeth, so BJ actually has a recipe card that he asks that you fill out for any behavior you want to change. And it goes exactly like you said. After I brush my teeth, the next part is I will, and you plug in.
power walk 15 minutes. Maybe it's put on
Okay.
my shoes. Maybe it's actually just put on my shoes.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So you can see where that cue, the next thing that should happen is the behavior. So try to come up with a cue that's going to lead you to your shoes because you
Okay.
need your shoes to go out and do your power
Yes.
walking, right?
So instead of the brush my teeth, after I walk down the stairs in the morning,
Mm.
then I head right to my sneakers. And
Okay. Okay. So
okay.
that alone is an action.
Yeah.
Okay. But you want to go further. So you get your shoes on. Just say the action in this case is I will put on my shoes and go for a walk and
Gotta add.
go out the door for a walk. So and then that reward, the brain likes a nice reward. You decide, okay, so after I this, I will that, and then I will celebrate, as BJ calls it, by doing something. And the celebration can truly be just simply giving yourself a thumbs up and smiling and say, yeah, I got that done. I did that today. That's telling the brain, oh, this is good. I want to repeat it.
So that's why we want to celebrate.
That's
That's
why we want to
like,
celebrate.
okay.
Because the brain wants the reward. The brain does want the reward.
Okay.
And that's like a dopamine hit in and
Oh,
of itself, smiling, giving yourself anything that's acknowledging that you did that. The
okay.
brain likes that.
What if I feel kind of silly doing some sort of like self high five or whatever?
Yeah. Yeah.
Is there a workaround, or it's like just fake it until you make it and eventually it will? Because I know this is the most important part of the
It's
rest.
really important. It's really an important part. And so frequently we don't give ourselves any reward at the end of doing
Yeah.
something that's different, right? So yeah, we don't want to overlook the reward part. And I agree, some of the things that they recommend can be really silly and not always doable. It just depends on what setting we might be in. So BJ says something as simple as just acknowledging within yourself.
Like
Good job.
you
You
did
can
it.
just say it to yourself. So the important thing is it's not just saying it to yourself or giving the thumbs up, it's feeling the emotion.
Okay.
So just having these silly things, if there's not an emotion tied to it, the brain's not going to pick up on it. The brain is looking for something emotion that gives you an emotion. Like I'll use a piece of chocolate for an example, right? We eat the chocolate. As we're eating it, we are like hopefully tuning into the creaminess, the flavor, the pleasure. Now the brain's like, yeah, I want more of that.
Mm.
So we want to feel some pleasure or another emotion, positive emotion around what we just did.
I love that. And so that even it feels like the celebration is very personalized, depending on
It
just
is.
what makes you like I have done this tiny habits method for, I can give another example later, but just getting hydrated and it actually has miraculously worked. But my celebration is always like just a little dance or some silly movement just because it makes me laugh and feel silly. And
Yeah.
that, so it's figuring out what just can like elicit a laugh, a smile, a sense of joy, sense of accomplishment.
Yes. Yes. Great examples. Um, and it just is, if it's not working, so just say, okay, off you go, and you've done this, today, tomorrow, the next day, and then something happens in your life and you get off schedule, right? And you don't go out and do your behavior. And then the next day you don't do it again and you don't do it again. And this is what we all do. I mean, we've all had this experience, right? So what we do to reset is go back to those three elements.
Okay.
Go back to those three elements. So don't be looking at motivation like kicking yourself. I should be getting back on this, this running or power walking. That's what we usually do. We should on ourselves. We shouldn't.
Should ourselves.
I should do this. I shouldn't do that. And instead, we just want to go back to these same three predictable components and see what we might need to adjust. So when you were talking before about something being tiny enough,
Mhm.
so maybe the 15-minute walk, if you listen to what story you told yourself why you didn't get out there the next few times, right? It might be, I just didn't have time today, or I didn't have the energy today. Listen to what your self-talk is, because that will often give you a clue as to what might not be right about the behavior. So in your case, we'll just pretend that I just didn't have time. I had to be somewhere. I just couldn't get it done. So then we want to try it again, but make it much smaller, very small. Even if it's no matter if I don't have time, I am at least putting on my shoes and walking out the door. And I might only walk to the end of my driveway, but I'm going to keep that habit going. I'm going to just scale it back when life gets in the way, and life does get in the way. Just scale it back and make it as tiny as you possibly can, and know that you are still making progress. And
Mhm.
you will get there. And once we feel successful, that we are doing what we committed to do, even if it is just put on the shoes and walk to the end of the driveway, once we feel successful, that is again reinforcing, rewarding. I
Yeah.
feel capable, I feel successful, I can do this. And
Yeah.
then before we know it, we are doing more and more and more just naturally, without making ourselves, without shoulding ourselves.
Mhm.
We're just going to want to do it because now we feel successful and capable, and then we can do it.
Hmm. I love that. And I love
Yeah.
whenever you speak on this, I shared this with you when we were preparing for this analogy of the railroad.
Mm,
Really love. So imagine a train going along its track. That's you like moving through your life on autopilot with all the habits
autopilot.
you've already instilled. And you're like, I want to make a change. And it's a huge turn this way. You're not just going to take that huge turn real fast, right? Because things could
Mm,
tip. You want to build the track one little bit at a time until you're moving in that new habit. But it takes time, right, to build the new, like lay the new path, if you will.
yeah. Great example, Megan. You said it in the beginning, you used the term, we often get derailed.
Mhm.
So it does go back to that analogy that
Mm.
If we take too sharp of a turn, we're going to get derailed.
Yeah.
And by just staying on track and just scaling back, okay, so maybe this curve that's coming up, a life event is a biggie. So we need to go back to smaller steps, right? We don't want to take it so fast. We want to, and then there will be times when things are good and you can go faster. Like you might have days where you have more time and you have more energy and the weather's perfect and you're like, I'm going to go for 30 minutes today.
Yeah.
Okay,
We
because
want to train our brain for like a guaranteed win. We want to create a recipe that it's like, I can do this. I will win this. So then we light up the brain with like, yes, accomplishment. And
yes,
then if there's space for more, there's space for more. Awesome.
yes, 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 yeah,
Is that
yeah.
what it means to
So
be like a habit designer? I know we've talked to this word has come up a little bit. Tell me more about like, what does it mean to be a habit designer?
so being a habit designer is you have this information. Now you can implement it. Okay, you can look at what you want to have happen, what your aspiration is, your goal. Just say I want to lose 20 pounds, right? That's your big aspiration and goal. And we know that if we maybe change our diet, move more, sleep better, reduce stress, these all can contribute to that. So now think about where you might want to start, right? Okay, I'm really not ready. I mean, probably going to have a lot of candy this weekend, hopefully not, but possibly, I'm not going to start by giving up something. I am going to start by, I feel ready to start because the weather's so beautiful and nature's so beautiful right now. I'm ready to start by moving more. That's all, just moving more. So then you take that moving more and then you plug in the recipe card. That's the design. That recipe card is the design. So, and we didn't talk much about the anchor, the prompt. We mentioned about the reward. We mentioned about the behavior being tiny, being doable, predictable. You have to be able to do it predictably.
Okay.
So the predictability part could be where you got your cue. So you mentioned about brushing your teeth. As initially, yes, that was going to be your cue because you do that predictably every morning, no matter what, right? So if you tried to use that, there's a lot of steps that can then happen between that particular cue and you actually getting out the door, right?
1,000. Yes. Yep.
Yeah. So sometimes it's the cue or the prompt, the anchor that need adjusting. Okay. So when you're designing this, you have to go try it. You have to try it and see how it works. If the cue seems like spot on, yeah, I got myself to my shoes, which are right at the door, and I open the door and I step out, right? If the cue is very predictable, then we don't need to adjust that. Then we look at the behavior. Is it tiny enough? Is it doable? For sure, like even when life gets in the way. And then we look at the reward or the celebration, the reinforcement. And anytime one of those three things is maybe not strong enough, that can make the change hard. So you as the designer now have this formula. You just go back and you say, oh, I tried that. I thought that would be a good anchor. Turns out it's really not. Okay, so you redesign. It's that iterate, try, fail, iterate, and you can do this with behavior, which is great news. We all can do this and we all can be successful.
You have a great example that I've heard you share before about your cue redesign. Can you tell us
Mm.
that? I like examples are great for our brains to like understand it from different angles.
Yeah, the process. Yeah. So I wanted to start my day more intentional. I wanted to go out the door with an intention for my day. And so, using this little process, I said, in my closet / dressing room, I had a sign. I have a sign, a canvas sign that says, good things are going to happen today. And I love it. It's upbeat, it's positive, it's pretty. And so I thought, I like that. I'm going to be intentional about that. Reading it every morning and feeling an emotion, which was easy for me to do because I reworded it a little bit. So I thought, okay, after I brush my teeth and walk out of the bathroom, I will, you know, obviously I go into, get dressed. I do that predictably, obviously I'm going to get dressed. So I'll use that going in and getting dressed. When I'm done dressing, I will read my sign and set my intention. So I was doing it. It's easy enough. The sign's right there. I'm getting dressed. Turns out I wasn't doing it all the time. And I was like, this is silly. I mean, the thing's there. I like it. It makes me feel good. Well, when I looked at the cue, I realized that it wasn't the last thing before I leave my bedroom and begin my day. My last thing was putting on my Apple Watch and putting the code in. Happens every single day. And I thought, well, let me try that because the behavior was small enough. All I had to do was look at the sign and feel the emotion. The emotion was strong because I reworded it that good things are going to happen today for me and for my family. And I feel the emotion of that in my heart. So I knew that was good. So I thought, well, let me just try this. I'll just make the cue different. And I did. And that was it. 100% success. Never not do it because everything was lined up well, designed well. And sometimes we just have to do that. We think this one piece is going to be good, but maybe it's not quite in the right place, or maybe it's not quite small enough, or maybe the reward isn't really there. You're not feeling an emotion.
Hmm. I'm hearing this piece of, I really love this approach because there isn't that like shame, judgment, guilting yourself. Like we're pulling that out and we're replacing it with curiosity. And I heard you as you're like telling your story, you're like, let me just try that. Nothing to
Yes,
lose. Let's keep trying until we arrive at
the right
yeah,
formula.
right
And
fit. We
BJ
know
Fogg
it's
says we change best by feeling good, not by feeling bad. So we want to make sure, and that's where that reward, reinforcement, celebration is really that important because we change best by feeling good.
ooh, I feel good right now. That I feel like that really drives it home. I want to just acknowledge we've got like 2 minutes. So
Okay.
I want to let everybody know just sort of next steps on this, because if you're here live and signed up, we'll send you a video of the recording, but I also will put in a PDF of the habit recipe so that you can try this out. And I'll make sure to put it on our events page too, just a clickable link to open that habit recipe. You can print it out or you can just kind of redo it on a sheet of paper or a notebook since it's the first draft, right? Can you have a system where you're drafting and giving
Yes.
yourself space to, all right, this didn't work, flip fresh sheet of paper, pull over what works, tweak what hasn't worked. So I want to make sure that everybody has that just to support them in starting to try this out. I'll make sure also to put Debbie's information linked to her website so you can also reach out to her if you have questions.
Yes, feel free. Yes.
Awesome. Debbie, thank you so much. I love talking to you because it's just like always very rich and inspiring and clear and grounded and simple, like accessible. And something you said at the very beginning, I wanted to touch back on. You said it's not just about a lot of information, right? It's actually action. So for those here and for those watching, what would be one action step invitation that you might recommend for a next step, right? Because we've listened to a lot, absorbed a lot, but now let's do something with it because we're talking about an actionable step in our lives. What's next step you might recommend?
Well, again, everybody's action is going to be different, but I would recommend start with something fun. That's not, you don't have any great big aspiration around. Just play around with this process and just see, is it sticking?
Awesome.
So I invite everyone to just do that after the call today and just Meg, as Meg said, she'll put up the recipe card and go with it.
Awesome.
We have questions.
We have one really good question that I want to stay on for. So how many habits do you recommend trying at once so it doesn't take years?
That's a good one.
Great question.
Yeah, yeah. I typically people can focus on 3. And again, that's just generally speaking. And if you maybe want to do one, just say weight loss is a goal or stress, whatever you pick. Maybe, we mentioned there's so many different components, right? For weight loss, whether it's change your diet, move more, de-stress, sleep better. See if you can pick a tiny habit for 3 of those areas. Don't pick the same kind of category. Pick 3 different categories and see what you're the most successful at.
Okay.
And if you can easily handle that, you can feel free to add more. Again, you're the designer of your journey, and have fun with it.
Yeah, I like that. Like applying is this a joyful process, or am I putting too much pressure on myself to change everything at once? So keeping like, am I having fun doing this? And one thing I've noticed with myself is like, I just tried it with one thing. I noticed it worked. And now that's how I look at more things.
Yes. Yes.
So maybe start with one.
Yes.
If that's accessible, really like, again, get that in your bones.
Yes.
That might be.
Yes.
Then just how you see and approach things overall.
Yep. Yep. It definitely happens that way. And then what ends up happening is you actually change your identity of who you are. So, you may become, I'm a healthy person. That's just who you are. And because that's who you are, your behavior will follow that identity. So yeah, what you refer to is exactly that.
Love it.
Yeah.
All right. We could talk forever, but we all have to get back to lunch or work or something. Thank you all so much for your time and for being here. Thank you, Debbie, for your brilliance and your expertise. This was awesome. And yes, feel free to reach out to us if you have questions and need a little extra support. We are here for you.
Thank you again, Meg, and thank you everyone that joined us.
Yes, thanks so much. Until our paths cross again, everyone, please be well. And also next week, our class of the month is with me, Thursday, same time. It's a yoga and breath work designed to be accessible in your workday. So don't be nervous that, whatever work clothes you might be wearing, you won't be able to do it. Come do what you can. And I look forward to seeing you all then. All right, take care. Have a beautiful weekend, everybody.